Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It's bloody freezing over here in the UK. The heating unfortunately has gone on, which is not a good sign at all these days. This isn't an NWA show. This is Ringside View, as you can see behind me, where we talk about more. Sometimes we have guests on that are not necessarily wrestlers, but in wrestling. And this is what we got today. And no, I'm not talking about my usual co-host. Good evening, Fee. How are you? How's Scotland?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm all right. How's it over there in Scotland? Just as cold?
It's cold. It's always cold.
You
What
have
can
to
I
put your
say?
heating on in August over there, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what it is. But enough about me and enough about Fee. We are joined to this evening by a referee from the NWA. Me and Fee talk about the NWA every week, so we always love our NWA guest, and it's referee Jarrod Fritz. Good afternoon, I believe. Over to you, Jarrod.
Yes, sir. It is afternoon, barely anymore, I guess you could say. Very thankful to have you guys on. I really appreciate it. Glad I can make it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, Jarrod. Before we get into NWA, before we get into RefFit and your appearance on the Broken Skull, which is I know what Fiona's looking forward to hearing about as well. Before we do that, obviously the wrestling world's been quite a buzz this weekend. I don't know if you know. You probably do. I know you was at Wrestle. Was you at WrestleK this weekend? You was at,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Was indeed. You may well have known that a certain Phil Brooks or CM Punk come back to WWE after 10 years away. What did you make of all of that stuff? I mean, it's caused a massive stir again on wrestling, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and any news is good news, right? Like it gets attention to the brand, it gets the attention to the company, and people could say what they want to about it and everything, but it's got people's attention, and that's what really matters. In my mind, it's okay. What's the next thing that happens at this point? From my perspective, with what they did when they brought CM Punk into AEW, it was cool because he hadn't been in wrestling for a while. But then it didn't really seem like they had any true like navigational plan for him. It was just, hey, we're going to kind of throw you with these people randomly, which is not necessarily bad. But I would love to see something with him where he's just in the background for a while. Just hey. I just come back to watch. I love WWE, like I love where it's headed and everything, and slowly but surely kind of gets interjected. And then, I said it to somebody I was talking to the other day. With his AEW return, he didn't need the belt. I don't think he needs to come back and win a belt at WWE. That's just me. He's a good character to have. You had somebody like Roddy Piper. He never had the big belt, but he was a damn good character that kept people's attention. So, and I think that's what, potential people are worried about. Oh, he's just going to come in. Is he going to be the same thing that he bitched about? Oh, you just bring in all these old people and they get his title shot and everything. All right, how about you work for it? Like how about you lose a little bit first? How about you earn your spot back if that's the way that they want to go? Yeah. But I like it. I have nothing against it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it brings eyes back onto wrestling, no matter what company you're in or you work for. It brings eyes on the prize. They've got 2 months before their next big show, so they've got plenty of time to do it. They have put the first hour of Raw commercial free this evening, which has created a bit more of a buzz.
I saw that. That'll be interesting. Yeah.
Well, Fee, what did you make of it? I mean, obviously, you're over here in the UK. We hear the stories, we hear the dirt sheets and all of this rubbish. Things that have gone on in AEW, and you were at Wembley when it all happened. You weren't backstage; you was in the crowd with a lot of other people. But what do you make of CM Punk coming back to WWE?
I'm not gonna lie, I've always been a fan. I love watching him work. Love him or hate him. Personally, I love watching him. So I'm actually quite excited to see what happens with him and see what he does.
Yeah. Ditto for me.
That's the bottom line for me, really. I just hope he's entertaining. That's all.
Oh, I think you can near enough guarantee if anything, the word that comes out with CM Punk, it will be entertainment. He knows how to work, and he knows how to work a crowd. That's for sure. Anyway, enough about WWE. Let's get on to something Fiona really close to our hearts. NWA, Jarrod. Wow. I have to thank Fiona because it was Fiona that got me back into NWA many years ago now. You always tweet that you're watching it on YouTube and whatever, and I was like, oh, that's around, is it? And I watched it. It's an intimate setting. But what's the last few sort of couple of seasons been like? It seems as if it's taken on we sort of mentioned about Impact Wrestling and how that's sort of been on this upward trajectory for so long now. We kind of feel that NWA is going the same way, certainly in the last few seasons anyway.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, I'm thankful and lucky enough to be a part of the production meetings and be in there with agents meetings and everything and kind of see where the mindsets are going. And the original studio setting was really nostalgic for a lot of people, and it was just something that was cool and it was a throwback, and that garnered a lot of attention for a certain demographic. But now, as we're trying to bring in more fans, and the reality is not we're not just trying to get wrestling fans, we're trying to get new fans, people that may not even be a wrestling fan. So you have to have something that's different, and that's the thing is, AEW, Impact, WWE, they all have big entrances, pyro, music, this and that. So how do we tweak that up and how do we make it different? And so we want to be able to offer something that's a little bit different. And I think we do a really good job about that, just giving something that's a little bit more on a different point of view, if you will, having still a studio setting, which is still true and genuine to what NWA did for so many years, but just doing it in a little bit of a different way. And I like that personally. It's fun.
So you've been reffing in NWA for how long have you been there with them for now?
I've been there since the first pay-per-view. The first pay-per-view was my first time working with them. And so that was, I think, December 2019, because it was right before the pandemic and everything.
And what, obviously, you've refereed elsewhere before that, and I know that you've been around a lot of places. I know recently you've had your kind of first New Japan experience as well. I'm just curious, what made you get into refereeing as opposed to actually wrestling itself? What was your inspiration behind that?
Accident. Honestly, I'll try to keep a story as short as I can. So by trade, I am a sports massage therapist, and I was at the 2008 Beijing Olympics with the women's national soccer team, U.S. women's national soccer team, and the doctor that was there with them, who I've worked with multiple times before, he had just recently signed a contract to work with WWE as their doctor. And he knew I was a really big WWE fan. So when we got back from Beijing, he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to try to get you a couple of massage spots if we're in the area. And he did. But shortly after that, they went a different direction with massage. But I still wanted to pursue massage with wrestlers because I've always been a wrestling fan. Never thought in my mind that I could ever be a wrestler. I mean, you look at Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. I'm 5'7", 172 pounds. Like, there's no way, So I found out that I didn't even know independent wrestling actually existed. And I found out that there was a local one here in Charleston, South Carolina. Went to a couple of their shows. I reached out to them and said, hey, I'd love to sponsor you guys. I'd like to come in and just work with boys in the locker room and just that's it. Well, they had this brilliant idea of like, well, the guy that brought you in, why don't we run a story or an angle? Okay, cool. State of South Carolina, you have to be trained and licensed to be within 6 feet of the ring. So they arranged it so that I could get a little bit of training. And at the training, the guy who trained me, a guy named Bob Keller, he was like, you have a lot of athleticism. Have you ever thought about maybe doing something else with wrestling? And I'm like what? He's like, how about being a referee? We don't have any really good referees around here. I can show you a couple of things and we can move you on. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. It'll be fun. And realistically, I never had any hopes or dreams or like, hey, this is my absolute dream to be in the WWE or anything. It was just like, this would be fun. I get to be a part of something. Well, after about 6 months of refereeing, he goes, if you wanted to, you could wrestle. And I was like, oh yeah. So I talked to my wife about it and she's like, yeah, you want to try it? So I actually ended up wrestling for about 1.5 years. There were some shows where I was on the first match under a hood. I'd come back, I'd change, and then I'd referee matches for the rest of the show. So I'd pull double duty. But I think I only had about maybe 30 matches, and then I had separated my shoulder. And when I was on the bed for recovery, it was like, I like wrestling, but I love refereeing. I feel like there's so much more that I can offer as a referee than I could ever do as a wrestler. And there's so many, it's saturated with wrestlers around here, and there's not that many good refs. At that time, I was like, I really feel that I could go all in. And so I spent months of my recovery just watching old WCW, old NWA, old, early, or I should say mid late 80s WWF. just watching the referees and just kind of seeing their characteristics. So when I did finally come back, I could actually really go all in on it. And that's where I'm at today.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. See, Jarrod, being a referee isn't just as simple as counting the 1, 2, 3, is it? There's so much other stuff that people probably are not always aware of that the referees do. I mean, how do you find yourself when you're in that ring and your match is going on? It's positioning, it's making sure they're actually okay. There's just more to it than counting the 1, 2, 3, isn't there?
Well, the crowd will always disagree that I don't do my job well enough. Clearly.
So does Danny.
And they know how to do it better than I do. So, that's fine by me. No, there is a lot. I actually got done doing a seminar this past Friday morning, just kick off WrestleCade weekend. And I really enjoy doing the seminars because there are a lot of things that I don't even think wrestlers are taught when they're at training that referees can do. They always look at this person that's just, you're just a third man in the ring and all you got to do is count, just like you said. When reality, our number one job is the safety of the wrestlers and everybody in the ring, whether it's a work or a shoot. Like we have to. That's why people ask me all the time, like, why do you always have your hand up? Like, why are you like pointing at them? I was like, I'm legitimately looking at their eyes to see if they have a concussion, because you can get a concussion off of just knocking your head just the wrong way. It doesn't have to be a high impact move. I'm legitimately checking on them. But it also gives me a pathway to communicate if I need to communicate in any way. So I explain to people a lot of times that the referees, in wrestling, you have good guys and you have bad guys, right? And then you have a narrator, and the referee is the narrator. We're the ones that help kind of lead the audience, the viewers, to go, oh, he reacted that way. Maybe I should react that way. And so those are the things that I talk to people about is, as referees, our stories grow just as the wrestler stories grow throughout a match. And so if you go from 0 to 100 right off the rip with your counting and just in their face and everything, the rest of that match, where do you go from that point on? We're trying to react naturally. And that's why I always say, hey, what type of falsie do you want to be the big falsie? Because if I do a big falsie every single time, it's the boy who cried wolf. By the time the finish comes, the crowd's like, oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's very artistic. A lot of people don't really understand it. But I do encourage a lot of referees, as far as learning positioning, to actually train as a wrestler for at least a couple of months, just so you can figure out where the wrestler, you can be anticipatory. You can figure out where the wrestlers are going to be so that you can be out of the way, but then also be right back there when it's going to happen, type of deal.
Yeah, no, that is the right way of doing it. I think training to be a wrestler would actually help with that positioning side. Just going back to the NWA, we love the roster there at the minute. Me and Fia talk about this a lot. We absolutely love the different combinations or the different varieties. You've got you've got the youngsters like Kenzie and Kylie are like they're veterans already, but then you've also got some of the people like veterans there where maybe they got like a point to prove just due to what's happened in the past, like the Latimers and the EC3s. There really is a great mixture there of NWA talent that I think in the next few years, and we were talking the other day, Fiona, how far like the people like Kylie and Kenzie could go. The sky is really the limit for a lot of these rosters, a lot of the people on the roster. Sorry.
Absolutely. And, when I came in, it was a very interesting mix that I don't think a lot of people really realize or recognize. When I came in, we had Eli Drake, aka LA Knight. We had Ricky Starks, we had Zicky Dice. We had a lot of people there that it was like, oh wow, and now they're getting opportunities to blossom and become better in other companies. I think it is a very cool combination of different styles and looking to find that hidden talent. Where it's not like, hey, they have it, where as much as it's like, hey, they're gonna get it. Like we see that it's there. It just has to take a little bit of shining. And we got some of the people in the back that really have some good minds for the business that help encourage and teach and build these characters up, that I think a lot of people will recognize season by season if you go through and watch each season of Power, where certain people just get better and better and better. And that's awesome. I love being a part of that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
We've spoken to lots of people from NWA over the last year, and the one thing that is very apparent is how much love there is for the locker room and the roster in there. no one has ever said a bad thing. Everyone's always spoken about how welcoming everyone is and just how it's actually really quite a tight-knit group of people.
Mm-hmm. It is.
As a referee, do you and the other referees tend to keep yourselves away from that backside, or are you in the locker room with them, or what's your kind of pre-tape or pre-show sort of? What's your have you got ritual? Have you got like a ritual or anything like that before?
I don't really have a ritual as much as I'm always running around with my head's cut off. Like I go straight from production meeting into the agent meetings, and then usually our senior official Kevin will give out the referee assignments. Then I got to go do the whiteboard because I've got the best handwriting out of everybody because I was a teacher for 9 years. So so I do the whiteboard, and then I've got to go get with each match that I'm with, and figure everything out.
Sure.
As far as being a part of it all, we're in the locker room with them. But the way that it's always been kind of like perceived to me, if you will, is the locker room is the boys, right? The referees are part of the office. Office is mom and dad, boys are the kids. You know what I mean? And so like you can be friendly and you can engage with them and everything like that, but you're not necessarily going to be brother hanging out all the time, that type of deal. I've built a lot of great relationships with a lot of people in that locker room, people I never really would have ever thought that I could become, friends with and everything. But realistically, we might grab a bite to eat somewhere or something like that, but I'm not out, partying with the boys or anything like that, first and foremost, because I'm an old man and I like to go back to my hotel room and go to bed or do my laundry or something. But it's one of those things that I just feel like you have to keep that division. You have to keep that line if there's a matter of respect between the division. You know what I mean? We're unified clearly, but there's got to be some sort of a line that, doesn't get crossed. And that's just my perspective of it. That's just the way that I feel like when you come in with an idea or whatever, because oftentimes, like I said before, they might forget that a referee can't do that, or they might have this cool idea and it's like, well, it kind of buries me and it kind of makes me look weak. But if I have this idea, how do you feel about that? And I feel like if you have that division or that separation of the two lifestyles, if you will, they're like, oh, yeah, that does make a really good point versus, dude, we can get away with it. Trust me, like that type of deal. Because you will see that a lot. I was actually having a discussion. One of my good friends that I came up in the business with, he rode back with me from WrestleCade, is a wrestler called Zuka King. If you haven't seen him, please look him up. He's fantastic. Very old school heel, very old school. And we were just talking about that. Like he and I are best friends, and that'll never change. But when we go into a locker room, I'm in the office and he's with the boys. There's that separation there. The moment we come out, we're right back to it. So I think it helps navigate and keep the business professional, in my opinion. And that's just me. That's not a set in stone rule. That's just me on how I operate.
Yeah, that's a good way. There's always a good way to separate. You have to separate that. I think there has to be a sort of, you unified, but at the same time, there's that bit where it's the office and it's the friendship. So you have to have that. There is that line, I think. But Jarrod, when you talk about refereeing in the NWA, is there any match that you can pick off the top of your head that you pick out as your favorite one that you've refereed?
Man, just out of the NWA.
Just
right?
out of the NWA, yeah. Just out of the NWA.
Okay. So man, let's see. I mean, there's been some really good ones. One I did, I think the pay-per-view was When Our Shadows Fall. I can't remember the date on that. I think it was shortly after the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was JTG versus Fred Rosser. And it was an extremely technical style match. A lot of holds, a lot of counters. And I absolutely love stuff like that. It kept me moving, but not in a bad way. It was one of those matches where there were not necessarily near falls, but like the shoulders were barely there. So it gave me the opportunity to really sit and look and check. And it was that close. And then boom, kick right back out of it and back into something else. And I love very technical matches. Those are very, very, very fun for me. So that one is always one that I really felt good about. I did one with Pope and Tom Latimer. I think it was for, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was for the TV title. And I think it was, I can't remember what pay-per-view it was. It may have been Hard Times. I'm not sure, but that was a good one. Of course, my first opportunity to ever do the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, Trevor Murdoch versus Mike Knox, Hard Times 2. That's always going to go down as probably one of my favorites, just because it was the first time I got to do the speech, hold the belt, do the whole deal there. And I mean, me and Camille make the joke all the time because we grew up on the indies together. And so we did a lot of stuff even before the NWA. And she selected me as a referee oftentimes because I was the shortest of all referees, which made her look bigger, but because we had that history together. And we were joking about it, after her title reign and everything. She's like, yeah, you've done like 60% of my title defense matches, and, she hasn't had really a bad match ever, so being a part of those, her versus Kylan King at Always Ready was just
that was
mind blowing. I mean, that was one of the ones that in the middle of the match, when there was that like first big falsy or whatever, I got up and I literally had chills. Like I was just like, whoa, like and for me, it's all about the emotion, right? Like one of my most favorite matches that I've ever done was for a company called PWX, and the two people, it was a blow off match for like a blood feud, brother feud type of thing. And I'm literally walking the one guy back and I'm just crying. Like I just got tears rolling down my face and I didn't know why. I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with me? But it was very emotional. And I love matches like that. I mean, that's what wrestling is emotion, right? That's what it should be.
No, it certainly is. And that's fascinating, because I was literally about to ask that question. Do you sometimes when you're in your match and you just get that feeling, like you just mentioned, that this match is just hitting all the right notes?
Yep. Yeah. You'll see it. I finally realized that I have a tell, if you will, that when I'm starting to get emotional is after something big happens, there's usually a moment of silence for a second, where everything's settling down, everybody's kind of recouping. And I'll do my little like kind of look around just to see how the crowd's doing. And it's just because I'm like soaking it all in at that point, just going, whoa. That was pretty damn cool.
We'll keep an eye out for that in future then.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's got it. He's got goosebumps. Is he crying? I think he's crying.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that as we watch through. Because you've just finished Return to Robarts, which was obviously a very kind of emotional, really, in itself. NWA going back there after so long, over 1,000 fans. Did that help give it that sort of big, I suppose, taping feel that you had, like the 1,000 fans there? They were making low noise. We mentioned it on the tapings we saw last week with the Turkey Gobbler with Aaron Stevens and that. But the fans were just so into that as well. But when you went back to Robarts, did it just have that special feeling?
Yeah, it was. I told somebody I had the opportunity to work at the Hamburg Fieldhouse a couple of times, and the first time that I ever worked there, just pulling up to the venue, you start getting that feeling like history, like you get it. And then you walk in and you see that corner where Roddy Piper hit Snuka with a coconut, and you're taking a picture in that same exact area right there. And you just realize it. And then you walk into Robarts and it's the old school, babyface locker room over here, heel locker room over here. And that's how we're doing it type of thing. So yeah, I mean, you can just feel it. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. We're a very historic town, and still to this day, I'll go down and walk down some of the original cobblestone streets, and you just feel all that history and the things that happened there, and it's a great feeling. And I don't think a lot of the young people these days actually really recognize and truly understand. Like, if it wasn't for places like this, you probably wouldn't be where you're at right now.
No, absolutely. Robarts hasn't obviously aired yet, and none of the shows from Robarts have aired yet. But I am really looking forward to seeing it. Thankfully, everybody who has been on and gone onto social media, there's been no spoilers, so we've not seen anything, which is great, which is hard in this day and age with social media. But I have seen some photos that haven't given anything away, and it looks phenomenal. So I cannot wait to see how it looks on TV.
Yeah, I think it'll look. I haven't been able to see anything myself. I haven't gotten any of the footage. Sometimes they'll give us a couple of clips or something like that, but I haven't seen anything. But I can only imagine how it's going to look from that perspective.
Yeah,
it's going to be special. Should only be a few weeks away, surely now.
I hope so.
Yeah,
it was on taping 4, I think, this week, isn't it? Show 4.
Yeah, I think our next tapings, pay-per-view or whatever, is the 13th of January. 13th of January,
yeah.
I think Robarts gave us 3 weeks worth of stuff. So
Okay.
I think we would probably start seeing stuff middle to late end of December.
Okay, so we've got a
That's
good few, 3 or 4 weeks, yeah. Jarrod, let's move away from NWA. Ref Fit, explain it to us.
It was a delusional experience when I was recovering from my shoulder injury. And really it was like, so the guy who helped train me, Bob Keller, he always told us all, hey, you can make money in wrestling, but you probably won't. So you have to figure out ways to make money. And after I had separated my shoulder, I was out of my shoot job for 2.5 weeks. I was out of wrestling for 18 months. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I separated my shoulder, I was back at 6. I'm like, well, you don't have a job that requires, you know, like your shoot job isn't requiring you to use your whole entire body on the regular and everything.
Yeah.
So I took that time. And at that time, right before my injury, I was doing CrossFit very heavily. I was coaching CrossFit. And I was always been into fitness my whole entire life. And so I was trying to just come up with kind of like a logo or something that I was like, hey, maybe I can sell some shirts, or maybe I can sell some stickers and still make a little bit extra money. And I don't know if you've ever seen the old CrossFit Reebok logo, but it's like this red triangle like this. And I was like, you know, if you add another one and you turn it, now you have a wrestling ring, right? And so that's where the RefFit logo came from. So I had somebody do that, and it was just like, hey, let me just kind of put this as a signature type of thing. And after a couple of weeks, you know, somebody asked, like, what is RefFit? You know, and I was like, oh, it's just, I feel like referees should be fit, like that you should have fitness, because, you know, oftentimes you're working multiple matches a night and you got to keep up with these guys if you want to look reputable. That's my opinion. And then it just become more of a mindset. And that's why, like, everything I do, you know, is hashtag RefFit, is because it's all about just knowing that you are capable of doing really great things. You just have to give yourself permission to do so. And so it's just another way to, like, let people, when they see that, that's just, yeah, you know, I've got it. I'm capable of doing something, you know, whether they realize it or whether they acknowledge it or whatever. That's what it's out there for, is just to help everybody out. You don't have to be a referee, and you don't actually have to work out to do it. RefFit is just more of a mindset than anything else.
Interesting. Also, they would help because some of these referees do have to run down long entrance ways as well. When they
well, that's running. A good thing that Charles Robinson does marathons and everything like that.
it is, because he's done a lot of those references. But Fee, if I remember right, did you have a sticker? Some sticker?
I have multiple stickers from Jarrod that I got when I was out in Tampa earlier on this year, which adorn. I have my little, for all my shows, I have my little wrestling case with my little collection of wrestling stickers. So I have some RefFit stickers on there. So thank you, Jarrod. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
There you go. And Fee, you wanted to ask a question about a certain WWE Hall of Famers show that Jarrod was on.
Yeah, so I saw your little tweet or post on X about the fact that
it's still Twitter, okay? It's still Twitter.
It's still Twitter to me, damn it.
Fine. Perfect, that works for me. That you had actually been a contestant on none other than Austin's I've just totally
Broken Skull.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe I totally forgot that there. I was having a mental block. That blew me away. I did not know that. I want to know all about that because I've watched it, I've seen it, and I've literally watched it with my jaw open half the time. How did that come about? How was it? How tough was it? Like, tell me about your experience.
So it was really cool. You know, when the first season of it came out, I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. You know, it's kind of going hand in hand with all these obstacle course and the American Ninja Warrior and stuff. I was like, and it was a cool twist because it was Steve Austin, and because it was something a little more rugged than, you know, the typical like American Ninja Warrior stuff that you saw and all that. But again, I didn't think anything of it at that time. Well, there was a guy that I was wrestling with or working in the business with at the time, a guy named Jackson James, who announced in season 2 that he was going to be on an episode. And I was like, oh man, that's freaking cool. Right. And so we did a watch party after one of the shows that we were on. And afterwards I was like, you know, hey man, like, how did that happen? And he's like, oh, you just go to the CMT website and you just fill out an application. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was like, I mean, again, 5'7". I think at that time I was maybe like 150 pounds or something. Like, there's no way I can compete with these big titans that are on there. And he's like, no, they actually have different weight classes. That's why you'll watch some episodes and the guys are smaller, and some episodes the guys are bigger. So they put them in kind of like weight classes. He's like, I'm sure that they put you in a, you know, coordinating weight class or whatever. And I was like, I'll go fill it out. No big deal. My wife was like, yeah, do it. That'd be awesome. And so I filled it out and I completely forgot about it. And probably, I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, I got home from work one day. I had my phone ring and it was 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I'll send it to voicemail. But I did notice that it was a California number, right? And all of a sudden I get the voicemail and I listen to it and they're like, hey, this is so-and-so from this production company. We're with Broken Skull Challenge. We got your application. We really like it. We'd love to do an interview with you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, maybe I should call them back. So called them back. I had to do a video interview with them. Very awkward because they're like, we want to do this stand-up interview with you with lighting and you have to have your shirt off and you like this. And I'm like, okay, well.
Is this legit?
Right? This is the predecessor to OnlyFans, right? So I do that. And one of the things that they had asked, and I think honestly, this is probably one of the reasons that got me on there in the first place, but they had asked, what would you do with the money? And everybody has all these like goofy answers and all that. At that time, me and my wife and I had been married for a while. She had 2 sons from her previous marriage, but she was fixed, as she puts it all the time. So she couldn't carry kids anymore because she had toxemia with both of her children. And so we had talked about doing surrogacy, and it was something that was pretty heavy on our heart at the time. So I said, I'd use the money to get a surrogacy so we could have a child together, And like the lady was like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing ever. She's like, I think you're going to be on this show. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. No big deal. That's awesome. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, I get the phone call. They're like, yeah, we'd love to have you on. We need you to do a background check. And of course, I own my own business, and doing a background check when you own your own business is a whole ordeal. So I'm contacting them like every other day. Hey, where's my background check? Hey, where's my background? We're working on it, blah, blah, blah. And Broken Skulls contacted me like, hey, where's your background check? I'm like, I'm trying to get it. And so finally they called me up and they're like, hey, we're sorry we had to go with somebody else because, we're on a time frame. And I'm like, no big deal. I had been working working out twice a week or 2 times a day for weeks on end, trying to get fit and in shape as much as I could. So I was like, well, I'm going to take some time off because I'm freaking exhausted. And so for like 5 or 6 days, I didn't work out at all. I ate heavy, I probably put on 3 or 4 pounds, and I get a phone call. Hey, wanted to know if you're still interested in coming to Broken Skull. And I was like, yeah, what happened? They're like, yeah, one of the background checks was falsified. So we have a spot open and we'd like to bring you in. And I'm like, cool. When do you need me there? In 3 days. I'm like, oh. Great. Fantastic. So I called all my appointments. I rescheduled everything, moved it all out of the way. They got my ticket for me and everything and flew in. And again, I hadn't even got to work out in those 3 days because I was just going like moving all my appointments from later in the week into those 3 days. So I got there and I was just like so underprepared in comparison to what I thought I should have been, if you will. And I saw the guys that I was going up against and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. And it was a good time. Unfortunately, I lost in the first round, but again, I think a lot of that has to do with just being underprepared. If you ever watch the episode again, I don't even know if you can get it like for free or anything. It was, I think, season 3, episode 13. It's called King of the Hill. And there's a lot of people that say that the guy that I went against in that round cheated and I should have won, but hey, I don't care. I was thankful for the opportunity. It was really cool. And Steve had said a couple of things to the whole entire group at the very beginning, like off cameras and everything, and just about like, I've personally gone through and watched all your interviews, and there's a reason that you're here because we believe that you offer something to this world and everything. And it was at that point that I was just like, yeah, as soon as I get back home, it's full gear from that point on. And that's exactly what I did.
Amazing.
So you guys can thank Steve Austin for that.
I was going to say, did you have much interaction with Steve? And you mentioned it before. Was there any other did you have any personal time, or was it just full on filming at that point?
So when we got to the set, if you will, you had to go in and you had to do all these pre-tape things and interviews and blah, 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 blah. And so you've never met Steve to this point. And if you've ever watched the program, there's an opening scene where he's like driving down the road in his Bronco and he slides in. And that's the first time that you actually see him. So you're standing there, they're like, all right, action. And you see this truck just barreling down the thing and it whiplashes in there and he gets out of the truck and he's just, mean mugging everybody and everything. And they're like, all right, cut. And he's like, what's up, guys? How's it going? Blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, all right, cool. Like, and then in between takes of doing like the events and everything, he would take each one of us aside individually, or like, hey, Jarrod, we want you to come over here and talk to Steve, because he wanted to get to know a little bit more about like who you were, like how you trained and this and that. And so I got to talk to him. I think it was on 3 different occasions where it was just like a one-on-one for a couple of minutes. He's, hey, what's your numbers in lifting? What do you do? And I told him, I was like, I'm training to be a professional wrestler, because at that time I think I'd been training for maybe a year or so. And he goes, oh, can I give you a couple of tips? I'm like, no, that's good. I mean, who'd you ever beat? But no, he gave me some good tips. And I was actually about to be going to a wrestling seminar with Dr. Tom Pritchard. And I told him that. He goes, oh man, me and Dr. Tom go way back. He's like, can you do me a favor? Can you tell him I said hello? I'm like, yes, Steve. I will tell Dr. Tom Pritchard that Steve Austin said hello.
And did you?
Oh, absolutely. And it was funny because at that time I had never met Dr. Tom before. And so after our first day of training, when he dismisses everybody, I'm just kind of like hanging around like this meek guy. And I'm like, hey, Dr. Tom, I just wanted to let you know that I have a message for you from Steve Austin. And he looks at me and he's like, Stunning Steve Austin? I'm like, yes, sir. I just did a TV show with him and everything like that. He goes, oh shit, what did he have to say? He's like, he just wanted to say hello. He misses you. He goes, puts his arm around me. He goes, well, next time you see him, you tell him I miss him too. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's going to happen, but now Dr. Tom's one of our agents with NWA, and like we're really good friends. And I'm actually going to be moving up to Tennessee next year. And I've actually talked to him about potentially doing work with him at his school and everything. So fingers crossed that'll happen.
That's amazing. Nice. What a great story as we go to move back to NWA before we start wrapping up and everything, Jarrod. What have we got to look forward? Obviously, don't give anything away. We don't want spoilers, but what have we got to look forward to at Robarts?
So I think you're gonna see a handful of new people that you haven't seen before that I think offer something interesting. And I think we're doing that more often because we want to see the reaction. We want to give, I think AEW with the whole dark thing that they were doing for a while was a way to kind of do that. And I don't think that, my own personal opinion, I don't think that they did it as well as they potentially could have. I think it's one of the things of like, they could market it like, oh, hey, look at this independent wrestler is on. So now those people are going to watch just to see them, whereas now you're going to get to see some people do some things that some pretty decent talent overall. You're going to see some cool storytelling that's going to pull back from Samhain and probably lead into whatever the next pay-per-view is called. I don't even know what it's called. And I think realistically, that's the word, storytelling. You're going to see a lot of really cool storytelling. We had a lot of matches that had a lot of cool little caveats and things that will, I think, blossom into other things. And that's one thing that I do like, is that it's like, oh, I thought we were going in this direction, but clearly we're now going into this direction due to somebody's scheduling issues or, what have you. And that's one of the things that I love about it is, and I talked about this in my seminar on Friday, is adaptability. Something happens, somebody can't be there, we'll pivot and go on to the next thing and work right from there, and it's great.
Yeah, awesome. I was going to say we're up to Slime Balls, I think, Fiona. That was the latest team.
We got introduced to Slime Balls last week, so
yeah, we did. And then Tiffany Neves, is it this week? 1-on-1.
Ooh, yeah.
Is it Rufi J, #1 contender?
Yeah, and then we've got the return of Tim Storm to the ring with Jack Stain tagging this week, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, we certainly. And Mo Jabari done a really good show last weekend, put on a really good match with Kobe last week. So it was really good. But as we start to wrap up, Fee, do you have any last questions for Jarrod before we start wrapping them up?
Do I have any last questions for Jarrod? I probably want to know some spoilers, so I'm not going to ask any questions.
No,
really quickly, if we've got time, just how was your New Japan experience? Because I know that was a new one and for you this year. How did that all go for you?
So yes, we have plenty of time. I'll make time for you guys. New Japan, that wasn't my first time with them. It was actually my third time. My
mistake.
Yes. I worked with him in Charlotte a couple of years ago, and it was realistically just an opportunity to see, if I'd fit in with them. And when their senior official went on to NXT, he's down there with NXT. the guy who replaced him, a guy named Taito. I reached out to him and told him, hey, if you ever need anything, please let me know. And back in August, I got to go to Philadelphia and do the All-Star Juniors tournament, or I shouldn't say tournament. I think it was a festival, so it was like all these lightweight, All-Star cruiserweights, whatever you want to call them. And then the very next day we did the multiverse. So it was Impact versus New Japan, which was really cool. So technically I've worked with Impact before. And then we did the New Japan show in Dallas, or actually technically Garland, Texas.
That was
and it
just
was
a
really
couple
cool.
of weeks ago, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It's been a busy month for me.
Oh, that's good.
But no, it's I love working with those guys. I lived in Japan for 3 years. My dad was military, and the time that I was in Japan, I had no idea what New Japan was. I had no idea. Like, it wasn't until I moved back to the States that I became a huge Bruiser Brody fan and Stan Hansen, and look back and be like, why the hell did I not take the opportunity to go and do these things, because I didn't even know it. But New Japan is really cool. The culture in general, Japanese culture, is absolutely amazing. They're very gracious and they're very respectful, and everybody that works there are really cool people. I didn't get to work with Eddie at that show, but Eddie Kingston was there and he worked with us at NWA, and he's one of those guys that he absolutely loves you. Like, he doesn't forget. The moment he walked in the door, he's like, bro, what's up, man? I'm like, oh, you're the you're the Ring of Honor champion and everything like that, and you still remember who I am, type of thing. And people like Wheeler Yuta, who I actually wrestled with on the indies multiple years ago. We were working mud shows in the back of Myrtle Beach that were absolutely horrible, on rings that didn't give at all. And just to see those people and everything, and it's just a lot of respect, and it's really cool. And I'm hoping to get the opportunity to work with them again.
Yeah, hopefully we'd definitely like to see you do that again in the future with New Japan. But guys, as we start wrapping up, Jarrod, where can anyone get in contact with you? What have you got coming up? And how can people reach out to you? So
I'm all over social media. Now I have to remember all of them because I didn't do that cool thing where you can just uniform everything, right? So on Facebook, it's just Jarrod C. Fritz LMT. On Twitter, it's at JFritzRefFit. And Instagram, I believe, is just Jarrod.Fritz. And yes, I said Twitter because it's always going to be Twitter. I don't care. And then I have a TikTok. I just am not very active on it, and that's Jarrod.Fritz as well. But as far as things that are coming up, I'm winding down my year. I'm going to hopefully take about a month off after the middle of December. This upcoming Saturday, we have a big show with JCP Promotions, who works kind of hand in hand with NWA up in Tennessee, Coalfield, Tennessee. And the big boss man is actually going to be there. Billy Corgan is coming to apparently give some sort of an announcement of some sort. With him, you have no idea what it is.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. So he'll be there, and we're actually doing a seminar that morning. So I'm going to be a part of that. And then the very following day, I'll be back here in Charleston for a home promotion here. And then the following weekend, I'll be at Viral Pro Wrestling in Georgia. And then I'll get a month off before the next round of tapings with NWA.
Really?
So it'll be nice. I've been going for about 6 weeks now, 6 weekends in a row, where I go work at my shoot job. I have a day to go get groceries, and then hop on a plane or hop in the car and go on out.
Amazing. And also, speaking of busy bees, Fee, come on. Post a girl.
Oh my goodness. So Wednesday night we have our Inside the Rope show in Glasgow with Scotty Too Hottie. So that'll be a good one. Just a little one-off with him, with Katie. Friday night, it is the start of our British Championship Wrestling No Blood No Sympathy weekend. We've just sold out East Kilbride tonight, which is great. So we're really excited. Saturday night is Kilmarnock, which I am going to hold my hands up for. It's my biggest show to MC to date. Probably one of the grandest venues in Scotland to host a show as well. Little bit nervous. I'm sure I'll be fine, but that's on Saturday night. And then next weekend, I've got Pro Wrestling Scotland with the double header with James Storm on Friday night and Saturday night. And then on the Sunday, straight into a 3-day tour with Inside the Ropes in Glasgow, Manchester and London with none other than the Godfather Stoke Papa Shango. So I am buzzing. Got a couple of really busy weekends coming up, so good times.
You certainly do, Fee, and we have to. And you're a poster girl for a show.
And I'm a poster girl. Just this like little tiny me. I'm on my first ever poster, Jarrod. We're running an all-female show, Chaos in Clydebank in February, and they've put me on the poster, which is a bit
fantastic.
bizarre,
I love it.
Never mind. I'm
That's
excited.
awesome. You got to get over. One of these days, I'm gonna try to get out there to the UK and do
there's
some
so
stuff.
much
I'd love to do it.
you could get involved in over here. So much.
It's just it's always very difficult with the shoot job and trying to figure out finances for it and whatnot. So, but one of these days it'll happen.
Definitely,
you'll always be welcome.
Yes, and let us know if you do make it. We'll definitely put some time aside to.
Oh, trust me, it'll be painted all over social media.
Speaking of which, I need to make a couple of things. So we're going to sit down with Eric Bischoff for part 2 soon. He's been away for his part 1 went down a storm, unless you're a fan of AEW. It might not have gone down as much of a good storm, but it'd be great to have Eric back on. He has agreed to do a part 2. I haven't really got any shows until February, which is the show that our championship gets defended again. The Turnbuckle Championship will be defended February the 4th. Chapter 3 at Ignite Wrestle Pro. There is literally 30 tickets left already. They only went on sale a couple of weeks ago, and he will be our champion. Smashing Mike will be taking on someone that you may know, Fiona, man like Drees.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That'll be good.
I know, what a bang. They just announced another tag match between the Bryant brothers and Mark True, who's a good friend of ours, as you probably remember, and Kieran Lacey, who's going that tag match is going to be great. They've not announced any other matches yet, but we're literally 20 or 30 tickets left, I think it is now. And then we may have to ask the venue if we could have a few more seats so we could get more people.
Lovely.
It's going to be incredible. We're going to be announcing our sponsorships for next year very, very soon. Well, I'll say very soon. Over the next few months, we've got 4, I believe, that we've sponsored for 2024. You'll probably know, well, some of them you'll know. Fiona, you've met them. You've met one of them at least, I think.
Okay.
I'll talk to you about it after, and you'll know who they are. But guys, Jarrod, thank you so much for your time. It's been great speaking with you today. Good luck with everything that you do. We'll look forward to seeing you on Power, and obviously we'll certainly have you on again, maybe as we get around to another NWA pay-per-view, so we can talk all things.
Absolutely, I'd love that.
Great.
Yeah, enjoy your month off.
And enjoy your month off. And hope you had a great Thanksgiving as well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving and a great Christmas coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks. And you believe that.
Yeah. Christmas. You guys too.
Thank you.
Enjoy the holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. This has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I have been Adam Cousins. She has been the wonderful Fiona Lockwood. And he has been Ref Fit, Jarrod Fritz. And until next time, everybody, buckle down and stay safe.